Okay, this is Glenn Young, and today we're going to be looking at figure 8 knots and the family of figure 8 knots. So we're going to start off with just a basic figure 8 knot, which is generally not used on its own, but is occasionally used as a stopper knot, especially in sailing applications. So I'm going to start with the tail of the rope, and this is a relatively thin rope at 9 millimeters in diameter. The thinner the rope, the less rope you need. So for this, I'm going to start in the middle of my chest and measure from the middle of my chest out 1 arm length, and then I'm going to make a bite, which again, from the previous videos, you may know is a bend of rope. And now, from my perspective, which I'll show in addition to this video, I'm going to wrap around the front of this bite all the way back around and then push it back into the front of the bite and pull. Okay? So there's the basic figure 8 knot. I'm going to turn this into a figure 8 follow through, which is the most common way that we tie into our harnesses, especially if we're tying it at the end of the rope rather than the middle of the rope. So I'm going to take this figure 8 and I'm going to turn it so the tail is coming out of the top of the knot. You can see it's coming out the top as opposed to flipped over, pointing down, coming out the bottom. It's coming out the top. And I'm going to insert that tail into the bottom loop of my harness, and then it's going to come up through this top loop of my harness. So through those 2 loops there, into the bottom, up through the top. Okay, and now I'm going to do what's called retracing this knot, but there is a particular way to retrace the knot. If you'll notice, where this rope is coming out of my harness here, there is a big hole on this side, and if I move the rope over, there's a little hole on this side. I call this the easy way and the hard way right here. I'm going to start hard, so start by pushing this through the small side, and I'm going to finish the knot easy, so coming out a big hole at the very end. Okay, so first I pull this up as close as I can to my harness, and then I start by pushing this through on the hard side, and I'm going to continue to follow this rope around, pulling the slack out as I go. Okay, I'm going to continue to trace this here. Okay, and this is going to come back and duck down and around. Okay, notice this part right here, I'm pushing this loop on top. So I start with the rope facing up on top, and I push the loop at the top of the knot on top. It's coming around here, and now there's the hard way here and the easy way here. I started hard, so I'm going to finish easy. So I'm going to take the tail of that and I'm going to push it down right through there. And I'm to cinch this down, I also have 4 strands, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I pull 1, 2, 3, 4. I can do that one more time for good measure if I like. But you should end up with a nice clean figure 8 with no twists or kinks. And for this you want to have at least 4 inches of tail, and I have more than enough. If I had a thicker rope, then I might need more, like 6 inches of tail. And here I probably have 6 to 7 inches with this 9 millimeter rope. So I'm going to show you one other little trick for the figure 8 knot that makes it look really clean and keeps everything tucked in and out of the way. So I've already tied in with a figure 8 follow through on my harness, and if you use the technique that I show in the other video, then you'll end up in this position right here where the knot will be sideways, and I'm going to flip this again just like in my previous video so that the tail of the knot is coming out and up from the knot as opposed to coming down from the knot. So with the tail up, I locate the top strand of my knot, and I can see the point where that top strand has dipped down into the knot here. It's underlapped here. I'm going to retrace from that dipping point out and around and then back down into the knot with the tail of the rope. So I start here, I'm retracing around this side, and now I'm going to tuck it back down into the knot here. Sometimes you can loosen it up with 2 fingers. Push that down into the knot just like so, and pull tight. And now if I pull on the load strand at the same time as I pull on the tail, it cinches everything down nice and neat. This is called the Yosemite Finish. Oftentimes people will tuck the tail just back down into the knot in another location, usually that's fine, but it can deform the knot over time, and it's not as strong as the true Yosemite Finish in this application. The last knot that we're going to look at in the figure 8 family for today, there are some more in the advanced series, but this is the last one we'll look at, is going to be a figure 8 on a bite. And a figure 8 on a bite, I see people do it okay, frequently, where you have some crosses. That makes the knot harder to untie, especially if it gets loaded over and over and over again, like on a fixed rope. It just doesn't look as clean, but it's still plenty strong. But to make this a nice clean knot, I'm going to use some of the same prescriptive measures that I showed in my previous video when I start to make the knot. So before, when I just made my overhand, I made a bend with a single rope, and now I'm going to do a bend with both ropes. So I make a bend in the rope, I wrap this as if it's a single rope around the back, and then I tuck it back in, okay? And when I tuck it in, you can see these ropes are starting to want to cross on each other, so I just make sure that they stay parallel. Now here's the trick to making this a beautiful knot. There are 2 loops here that are on the top before I tighten this up. All those 2 loops, I want to grab the one that is furthest away from me when I'm holding this up, and I want to pull that so it overlaps the other loop. Now when I pull this up, and I pull on all 4 strands, it turns into a nice, even, beautiful knot with no twists or kinks.